Hi, in this video I will show you how to put together this 3D bowling pin box, which is an SVG file from Simply Crafty SVGs. So with this we have, these are all the pieces. This is the bottom of the box. There's six of these. This is to make the top. And the reason we separated into two, not one big long one, because of the top. So here's a version of it. So if you can see, you're not going to be able to get your hands in at one point to be able to apply pressure where it needs to. So if it's too long, so we're just going to do the top part and then add the bottom portion of the top. So if that makes sense. The first thing I did though is to curl these a little bit. So you can do this on the edge of a table or with your fingers. So I'm going to curl it like that, and then it's kind of accentuated. It doesn't need to be that much because of the box. So let me show you again the lid. So you can see it just curves that way. So just to curve the paper, since I took out I don't have scored lines, it just helps when we glue these tabs. So the way I do it normally is before I fold these, I just do that, and then you can fold it down like that just so it's pliable when we glue it. It's not as much as it seems, but it helps to curl it. Same thing with this. This does curl a lot at the top, so you want to do that. And then once you just fold these a little bit, it's going to fold back a little bit, but it's pretty much straight right here. We're just going to go ahead and do that. So this is pretty repetitive, so I'm going to show you putting a couple of these together, and then I'll just do a video so you can watch me put the rest together. The hardest part is putting together when you have to close it up, and that's when you have something like a wooden chopstick or something like that, or chopstick. I'm trying to get my chopstick here. That'll help you apply pressure from within. So, or a dowel, either one. This one's a little worked. I think I need to crack open a new one, but it still works. So I'm using American Crafts texture cardstock and art glitter glue, and a fine tip applicator with a ton. So I usually use that for the most part because it controls the glue coming out. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to move these. We're going to work on this first. And on these, I didn't mention it, but it's just the red around the red stripes. But you could always paint them too. So just be aware that if you want a different look, you could always just paint it directly on. So that's always an option. So to start for this, we're going to take two of them. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to start towards the top. Just add a little glue. I'm going to do it to the first two tabs, because that first tab's rather small. I'm going to go ahead and align this. So what we're trying to do is align, see where this fold for this tab is? We're going to go ahead and align it, the section right there, and we want to align it at the top. So get it as close as possible, because this is the most important part. Whether you start at the bottom or top, it's aligning that first piece, first tab, that's an issue. And then I'm going to do the second tab. I'm just lining it up, using my thumb to figure out, to make sure that it's lined up, the second tab, and I'm gluing it on the inside like that. So you want to make sure those are your anchors. So you can do it from the bottom too, so we'll do it from the bottom as well. So this is the way you can do it from the top. And excuse the nails, I was just out picking weeds. Anyways, it's really dry here, and I don't get manicures because I wreck my nails. So they were better yesterday, but for some reason the dry lotion doesn't help that much. So we'll go ahead We're just going to add glue to the rest of these tabs, just lightly. Make sure you're getting glue up to the fold. If you're used to doing this, this is not that difficult, similar to other rounded. But what I like to do is line it up. So start where we ended up and get it in your hand comfortably, because that's the biggest thing. Make sure it works for you, whether you're left-handed, right-handed. And as I go down, I'm just making sure that this edge is lining up to the tab fold. And then I just continue. And I didn't put glue on that last tab. So once you get into the rhythm, it gets easier. I specifically did not put panels on this because of the nature of the stripe. So I was trying to make it as rounded as possible, because once you start adding layers of panels, especially with the panel going over it, then it gets harder for a panel to fold around, because we have to change the size slightly so it folds around. And cardstock panels are different thickness cardstock will give you different results when you wrap. So I'll talk about that later. So the next one, so I'm making sure, just make sure everything's pre-folded. The next one I'm going to start from the bottom so you can see what that feels like. But make sure this is good and dry, because you don't want to start pulling on the other side and having it, you know, pull. So I'm just going to do it the opposite. I just did 2, and I'm going to start from the bottom. You want to be consistent. Either start from the bottom or top. I'm only doing this for demonstration period purposes, but if it's off a little bit, then it throws the whole thing off. So some people might prefer to use that big tab, because it's easier to anchor a big tab. So I'm just making sure that this section, that this score line matches up with that score line matches up with that score line. And then once I get that first one in place, I can go up, do the second one. So this may be easier when you get to the end of it to do it this way. So you see my score line is pretty close, but once you get off a little bit, it gets off the whole thing. But fortunately, we don't have score lines up here. So I'm going to add, you can flip it around. I'm going to add glue on these tabs that way. So whatever's comfortable, do it. If whatever, just move it around until you can see how you can add the glue. Or you can just pull it away gently. Fold that one down. So now it becomes kind of a rhythm. Kind of go up for that first tab, and I'm feeling it inside. I'm also making sure this lines up, and then the thumb is the best way for me to figure it out. Your fingers are your best tools if you have, you know. And then it's the bending over. See, this bending part is what becomes the most challenging. So when you go one by one, you kind of do those last two almost right next to each other. So as you can imagine, as it gets smaller and smaller, to be able to reach in up here becomes more difficult. So that's why I start from the top. But you can do either one, and you can alternate whichever is easier at that point. So we'll continue. I'll do the next one from top down. I'll probably do the rest from top down, and I'll let you watch and until we get to the last one, just to show you how to close it up. That's the most challenging portion, in my opinion. So when it comes to closing this box, it gets a little challenging up here. So what we're going to do is add glue to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top tabs. Excuse me. This is where it could get frustrating for somebody. And this is one of the reasons why we put this in 2 pieces. This is not a beginning. You could do it with some practice, but just realize if you're having trouble, if you're new to doing shaped items, this is a little bit more challenging. So you could just do a couple tabs too. You have to be careful not to get glue on your fingers. I'm just holding it just right to get it lined up on the top. Get that first tab to reach in, and then get that second tab. It's probably not going to be ever perfect, so don't kick yourself, and you might want to not put glue on that last one. I just got too much glue on my finger. Or push them, make sure you push them in further. So now, going for the third one. And then before I do this, I'm just going to add glue to these. So as it gets bigger at the bottom, it's easier, so I'm going to add glue to the rest of it. I can almost reach in. So I might have to get a little bit more pressure. My fingers are a little bit too short. You can try to go through the hole on the top. I'm just trying to line up these edges. Then let me see if I can get this in there. To get that one tab that was just out of my reach, so I'm just using this as pressure on the back. And you do your best with the closure. It's usually harder for that last one, so that can be the back of your box. So I'm just looking in, making sure that the tabs are in. And I have one tab that is not quite flush the way I'd like. It's easier when you don't have to close it up. So now we can go ahead and add this top piece. So I'm going to add glue on all these. I'm going to take this piece, put it on top. If for some reason, so I'm just going to put it smack on top there. If for some reason you have some difficulty with sizing because it kind of expands a little bit, you can make it another, just a hexagon, just make it slightly larger. And either put it over this or replace this one. So okay, you can squish them together to try to get it closer. So I'm just kind of squishing in to get the tabs underneath. Get as close as we can. If I made it round on the top, it would have been harder to put together, but I did try that. I'm just going to reach in, and if you can see right there, just going to reach in and just, no, you can't really see it, it's going in and out of focus, but right there you can see the tabs in there, and I'm just going to apply pressure with the without pushing it off. So if you do that, you want to just make sure you hold it straight and apply pressure. And I'm just pushing down with the end of my wooden chopstick. It's not perfect, but you just want to get it did here. That's it. That's the top of it. I could have made this less rounded, but I made it round enough to make it look rounded, but trying to make it easy to put together. So the next thing we want to do, making sure that's all good and dry, we're going to go around and put these on. So same concept, the difference is we're going to attach this first. It's going to be hard to attach it after the fact, so just to build this out like that and have it attach, You could, but you have to be really careful. I mean, now we have to be careful. But this way we can reach in and get all the tabs. So I'm just going to go ahead and I might start where I started before. I'm just going to pick the edge that's the roughest. It should have been the last one I did, but I can't tell which one it is. And start there so we can say that's the back of the box. Because we'll end up there. We're going to go ahead and just line that up. You want to make sure you line that up, not over it, just right up to it, the edge up to the fold. I was determined to do a, whether people like this or not, I was determined to do one. So this may get in your way a little bit, but I like it a little bit larger, so it'll, I thought about making it smaller, but. So once we get that attached, you can attach that first if you like, or are we just going to glue that? So we're just going to glue that, and then we'll attach it after the fact. So if we go like that, and we're just going to do the same thing we did before, which is to anchor that top piece. Make sure it's folded up like that with the valley fold. I said to prep them like that. They all should be kind of shaped like that. Going to, you want to get it as close to this as possible. Make sure it's lined up. The reason is, if you're off a little bit on these, on any of these, it's going to be hard to get this around it. So you might have to make it a little bit larger. So that's the reason. Or you can just paint them. I talked about painting the lines, and you can do that. There's little, the reason I kept the scores in there is to give you an idea of where they should go. So that's the top red line, that's the bottom red line. Some people might prefer to do that. I might even do that if I were going to make it for somebody. So now I'm just going to go down, go through the same process, and I'm going to show you, you could have glued this tab right here first, but I think it's easier to maneuver this without doing that first. This one is easier to glue than the top. So if you get that first down, just try to get this edge even with the tab fold. Do something about my cuticles and nails. It just dry skin is killing me. Look like I have woodworker hands. Dry paper crafter hands. So that's what it looks like inside. So after you've done that, you can just go ahead and add glue here. That tab. And then we'll line that up. And then continue with the next one. Make sure you try to get this score line lined up here so it's not wrapping strange. So just if that makes sense. So now we'll continue. So again, we'll start with the anchoring it, and then we'll just continue doing the same way. So you can go ahead and continue to watch. And again, I'll stop when we get to the point where we have to close it. I stopped at this last one. So I stopped at this last one to show you, you want to, before you glue this on, you want to make sure that these tabs are folded in. It's kind of a little awkward, but you should be able to get your hand in there to do it. And I'm pulling it a little bit too, just to get it, make sure that it's aligned up here, but with a finger inside to apply pressure. So now the best thing I think for this is just you can start at the beginning. If you want to do that top one, you can, but you could do them all at once, really. Make sure you're not getting glue on the outside here. That's the hardest one to reach. So I'm just reaching in. This is where, if you didn't have a fine tip applicator, you could use something like a small implement or a piece of paper that you could get it in with their little brush. So there's other ways to do it without having just something small that you could put glue on to get it in there. So I'm just going to go ahead, some people use the end of it like sticks and stuff like that. So I'm going to line that up, that top one. So I'm reaching in. So it's a little bit different feel, but I'm just going to go down, but the difference is there's really not a huge difference in what I did, but way easier than the top. And the bottom, we're just going from basically the hardest to the easiest. I could have started from the easiest to the best. I'm going to line that bottom one up and just slide these other ones in place. So while it's still wet, we have a little wiggle room. And that one's out just a little bit, but that's okay. Remember, I decided that keep the back the same. Or the back the last. So as you can see, so here's the one I've already made. It goes over that, like that. So we're going to make this part. But let's go ahead and try to put these red pieces on. So there's two of them. So one's longer than the other. So the longer one will be the bottom and the shorter one's the top. So these can be tricky depending on the thickness that you're doing to wrap around. So again, you could paint it. So let me see with the back. We'll start with where the back is. So it's bigger, wider on the top, so make sure you have that. It's wider, shorter. We want to start with the piece like that. The little half piece right here. So I'm going to make this the back. So we're just going to dry fit it first. And it should line up, the bottom should line up with the score line down here. So we're going to wrap it around. Before we glue it, we're just going to wrap it around. So this is American Crafts cardstock, so you can see it just wraps like that. And I have plenty of space, so it might be a little looser with paper, but just get that first done and then you can just kind of wrap it loosely around. When I mean the first, get this glued on. So we're going to glue this little piece on right here. And then I'm just going to go in the middle with this. Again, I'm just finding the edge that seems the least clean because I want the front to be the best. So they're pretty similar. Just make sure you put it on correctly. Lining that bottom part to the score. So I'm just going to lightly put it around to make sure I'm getting it the right direction. And you can reach in. We could put this on earlier, but I didn't really want to get any glue on it. So that's the reason why. So I'm just kind of getting it set in that section. Once we get that anchored, we can go ahead and add glue, and I just do it to the middle. Unless this, except for this really back part. The end piece you want to get around the edges, but you can just go a little bit close to the edges. It's just in case you flap somewhere and you don't want glue on the white, since I don't have panels on this one. So I'm just going to go one by one. So you can see if you, just go ahead one by one. If for some reason you didn't match up the edges really close, these folds are not going to fall where you think they should. And I have a little glue on my fingertip, and I don't want that showing on the red or the white. So you just want to go ahead and rub that. Okay, so just making sure everything's good. And you can't really tell which is which. I'm just trying to figure out where I ended. I guess I did a good job because I can't see where I gotta find the end piece. There it is. Okay. So we'll do the same thing. So just make sure this is good and folded. The large part will go on the bottom, and the smaller part, so you can see it goes like this. And we're going to start similarly. First I just want to put it around, make sure that it's going to go around okay. So if it is off a little bit, you can always kind of pull on it a little bit, but it looks like it's good. So if you get too far in these gaps, it's going to be hard to fold that around. So that's the issue with these type of, if you're familiar with my files, you'll actually may not notice this, but I try to stay away from these kind of panels just because if you put it together wrong, people are going to get upset because it doesn't match. So this is one of my few exceptions, because in order to get this effect I want, I have to kind of have it go around like this. The other option I had was have this be a separate piece, and then you do the red piece, the white piece, the red piece, and it was too cumbersome. I tried it that way, and to me it was just too much. So I'm just going to go around once I get that set, make sure it's going to go around okay, which looks like it's doing okay. And if you want to just do glue parts of it, you can. So let's just do part of this. If you feel more comfortable doing sections, you can do that. And the nice part is you can reach in easily to this one. The top one takes a little bit more. So that hopefully this would be a nice gift for a little gift box that's special for somebody who likes bowling. So again, the last panel, I'm going to go a little closer on the edges, and we're going to fold it around. So if you did like this project, or like any of my videos, I always ask if you can give me a little thumbs up below, and or subscribe to our channel. And if you hit that little notification bell to the right, you'll be notified when we have new projects, tutorials, that kind of thing, new videos generally. 2022 has been a slow year for me, so I hope that changes. This is the beginning of a change as of the time of me doing this video, which is in March of 2022. So that's actually the hardest part is done, the top of it. So we're going to work on the bottom, and then that'll complete this box. Okay, so this will be much easier for you, hopefully, by this point. So we do want to curl these just like we did. You could use your fingers like that. You want to pre-curl them. Do not fold the tabs until you curl these a little bit, or you can do it on the edge of your table. This particular piece is harder to do on the edge of the table because it's connected, so you may tear this. So I think it's better this way. And then you can fold the tabs. And for this one, you can start at the bottom if you wanted to, or the top. I'm going to do the top, and the reason is that if we start at the top, we can line it up better. If we start at the bottom and it gets a little bit off, then it could be something like that. It could end up like that, or something like that. Just got a little water on this. So we'll go ahead and start with this one. And I'm going to add glue to all tabs at once. The larger it is, the easier it is to work with. The very last one, when we closed up, we might have to go bottom to top, so it just depends on how your hands can fit in there. So if you go like that, and just make sure you're just getting it lined up. Fortunately, we don't have anything that's going to wrap around this. It's just a white box. So the most important thing for this is get it lined up as good as you can. Still using my thumb as a guide to make sure that this edge is lined up to the tab fold. And we don't have a tab down there, and it doesn't really affect things. So I'm assuming even if you put a gift in there, it might be in a bag, it won't be small enough to get through that hole. But it's just easier to put together without that tab. The tab didn't really provide much value. It was more frustrating than having it. Normally I do not omit tabs, but for that one, I just kept on being a pain for me. So here's the second one. So again, you could start at the bottom, but I'm just starting it from this edge, so because this is the top edge of the box. Situate it however it feels good in your hand. If you feel like it's better a different way, like that, or maybe it's better that for you for this, but I have very small fingers, so I have to be able to reach in. So you have to do what works for your situation. So I'll put together the rest of them, and then when we get to closing it, I'll come back. So you can just watch me put these together. So now we're to the end here. So we can go ahead and we're going to add glue to all the tabs. Always make sure when I'm gluing this that I get close enough to the fold, but not enough that it's going to really leak out too much. But if you do, I usually have a little damp paper towel to get the excess, or get it off of my finger, and then I wipe my finger on the paper towel. So we're going to start at the top still. Much easier than the top part. And so we're just reaching in, making sure it lines up. So the only one that's usually the hardest is the furthest one, at least for me. If you have slightly longer fingers. I wanted to make the box big enough to put a gift in, but also I didn't want it too big, but I didn't want it too small, so it'd be hard to do the top. So hopefully I found that. So putting it smaller, it might be a challenge depending on how you're situated. So yes, you can see the tabs in the box. So if so we have optional, I'll add, I haven't done so yet as this video, but I'll just add optional tabs that you can put in if you want to hide those tabs, but not for this one. Actually, I'll add it for that too, just for this top part if you want it, but if you don't want to see them, so that they can fit in there. So you can look in the extra stuff folder for those, because it's really quick for me to do that. It's no big deal. And then now it just goes over. Now the only thing is, and that'll help. The problem with it, if you do put things in here, it's going to make it tighter. You kind of have to get it straight so it doesn't fall over, but once you have something in it, it won't. So there it is. Let me get that glue out of the way. It's a nice little gift box for a bowler. Just something different. For those that bowl or have friends that bowl or family, they hopefully will appreciate it. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I thank you for watching.